I'm going to help you decide which canned soup or shelf-stable soup. I'm going to help you decide which canned soup or shelf-stable soup. Why do I keep saying soup? I'm going to help you decide which canned soup or shelf-stable. That is a really hard one to say. Shelf-stable soup. I'm going to help you figure out which canned soups and shelf-stable soups you should really be choosing. Here's the thing. If you're looking to stock up on canned soup or any kind of pantry staple, I understand in an emergency situation or just a stock up situation, you're just looking to get your hands on calories. I totally get that and I respect that. The thing you do have to consider though is there are a lot of healthy options. But more importantly than the healthy options, I want to teach you what to look for on a label just so that you can avoid the things that are totally catastrophic to your health. If you're going to be eating canned soup for a little while, wouldn't you want to be choosing the right healthy options? Okay, so we'll talk about specific brands that I really think you should avoid. Then I've got 4 brands that I think you should focus on that you can get either online or at the grocery store. And then I'm going to give you a little list of ingredients that I absolutely think are just 100% no-fly zone. So without further ado, let's dive in. Hey, I do ask you please hit the red subscribe button. That's going to subscribe you to this channel, but it's going to also allow you to see our daily videos. So hit that little bell icon to turn on notifications as well. Okay, first I'm going to pick on the big ones. Let's talk about PROGRESSO and CAMPBELL'S for just a second. Now, I'm not here just to bash a brand. That's not my goal at all. Okay, they're brands that are doing some decent things. They're feeding the world in some ways, right? But let's talk about the ingredients. The first thing with PROGRESSO, lots of wheat and lots of flour in almost all of their soups, even if they really shouldn't have it. You'd kind of expect it in maybe a clam chowder where you're making a roux or something, but when chicken noodle soup has flour in the broth, you have to ask yourself, what are they going for? Basically, they're just trying to thicken it up, trying to add volume to the soup. But what you have to wonder, what's that doing inside your body? Okay, flour and wheat does trigger an inflammatory response within your body. So if you're going to be eating it consistently, it's something you need to think about a little bit. You don't want to be constantly triggering this inflammatory response, which is going to trigger stress upon your body. Next up is going to be modified food starch. Modified food starch and modified cornstarch. 2 different things you're going to see in a lot of different canned soups. However, yeah, they're usually further down the label. It's still something to consider. It means, what are you trying to hide? What are you trying to fluff up with this soup? So just something to consider. Then we move into soy protein. A lot of times in cheaper soups, and you see it in a lot of the PROGRESSO soups, they add soy protein isolate. They do this to increase the protein value of their soup, but they also do it, again, to thicken it. Well, what are we worried about here? Estrogenic properties. If you were to be consistently eating this, you would have such a surge of estrogen in your body, I would argue you could end up with some issues. Okay? You don't want to be having this massive surge of phytoestrogens or xenoestrogens, especially if you're consistently eating that. So if your soup says that it has soy protein isolate or soy protein added to the ingredients anywhere, really should kick it to the curb. Next up, we'll see a lot of maltodextrin. Now, the reason I like to avoid maltodextrin is it does cause a big insulin spike. So once again, when we're looking at the big picture, consistently consuming these soups, and we get a big spike in maltodextrin, well, yeah, that could trigger insulin resistance, could trigger some serious insulin issues that we really don't want to be dealing with. And lastly, natural flavors. If you see natural flavors in any of your soups, you really should go the other direction unless you absolutely know where those natural flavors are coming from. Not all natural flavors are bad, but here's the thing. Natural flavors will have up to 100 different chemical additives in them. Yes, 100 different chemical additives because they're called incidental additives. As long as the root flavor of natural flavor comes from a natural source, which is a loose term anyway, they can call it a natural flavor. So just be careful. Now I want to pick really quick on CAMPBELL'S for a second. CAMPBELL'S, yes, they're a big brand name. A lot of people stock up on CAMPBELL'S, and I understand that, and I understand and appreciate them from a business perspective. However, what's in that stuff? They're using stock versus broth, okay, already a lower quality, version of broth to begin with. They're adding the flours, they're adding the starches that we already talked about, but then they're adding MSG and they're adding yeast extract. Essentially synonymous. MSG and yeast extract are really the same thing. What they're doing is they're called excitotoxins. They light your brain up to make something taste better so you eat more of it. Well, what does this do? Well, think about it. You're causing a big surge of excitement. In essence, you're borrowing from tomorrow for today, causing a big surge of cellular waste because all of a sudden you have this big surge of excitement. It's like loading your body with just a big zap of energy. So you have a bunch of, cellular waste that occurs. Your body can't keep up with that. That is difficult on your body, but additionally, glutamate, like monosodium glutamate, is usually made in the brain, right? So that means it has the ability to cross through the blood-brain barrier. So MSG is a little bit uncharted territory. We don't know what it's going to do inside our bodies thoroughly. We know it can get in our brain, and we know it can trigger reactive oxygen species. Those are 2 things that I don't want to risk mixing, to be completely honest. So run the other direction from that stuff. And then of course you're going to find a bunch of vegetable oils. You're going to find vegetable oil, canola oil, soybean oil. Those kinds of things are not the right kind of oils you want in your body. Those polyunsaturated fats that are very unstable and they cause a lot of chaos in your body, plus a very poor omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. Now let's talk about some soups that I do think are worth mentioning and worth probably stocking up on, whether it's at the store or online. All right, Amy's makes the cut. Amy's has some pretty good soups, and I'll put a rating scale here. I would probably give Amy's a 7 out of 10. They're largely using organic ingredients. Okay, that's awesome. Then a lot of times they have no natural flavors or anything like that. They're really pretty clean. The reason they're a little bit lower on my list is they don't really have any low carb options. Okay, now if you're sedentary or if you're stuck in the house and you're eating foods from your pantry for whatever reason, you're not active a whole lot, I would highly recommend you reduce the carbohydrate intake. And because Amy's is a vegetarian brand, a lot of their soups are based around chickpeas or lentils or things like that, or rice, which is fine, but not if you're not going to be active. And if you're following a low carb diet, it doesn't really do the trick either, right? Additionally, I get a little confused because some soups they use extra virgin olive oil and some soups they use high oleic sunflower and high oleic safflower oil, which has a place because it's more shelf stable and it's still a monounsaturated fat, but why not just use EVOO all the time? Anyhow, still a good soup, still much better than stocking up on some of the really low quality soups. The next one is a smaller brand that you probably haven't heard of before called True Primal. I'd give True Primal probably a 7 to 8 out of 10. Okay, they're not using as many organic ingredients, which really isn't a huge deal to me. But once again, they don't have a lot of low carb options, but they also just don't have a lot of variety of their flavors to begin with. And to be completely honest, the flavor is a little bit meh. Okay, I mean, if you're looking at a soup, yeah, maybe you're looking at it just for calories and the flavor doesn't matter. But to me, flavor does play a big role. And additionally, it's a little bit questionable some of the oils that they're using as well. So we just have to be careful there. The next one is one that I've talked about a lot, and that's Kettle and Fire, which is truly a bone broth company that has branched into making soups. The reason I like Kettle and Fire and why they make the list is because their soups are actually like meals. Okay, they are calorically dense, they are nutrient rich, and they're using wholesome ingredients, so whole food ingredients. And instead of using a lot of oils and things like that in their soups, they're using heavy cream, okay? So you're getting like a full spectrum fat that has a little bit more of a nutrient profile than using like soybean oil or something like that. Bone broth, additionally, is a huge, huge, huge piece. Okay, bone broth is not chicken stock or chicken broth. Bone broth is broth that's made from the bones, including the marrow and everything like that. So you're getting the minerals, you're getting the magnesium, you're getting the potassium, the iron, you're getting what you need. And then they're smart enough to add apple cider vinegar to their broths to make sure that you get the mineralization that the minerals actually absorb. So with their soups, my favorite is the butter curry. Okay, that's using cream, it's using ginger, it's using curry spice, and of course it's using the bone broth. All of their soups, which are really meals, are also low carb and keto friendly, all of them. So whether you go for a broth or you go for a soup, they're definitely going to work within a low carb spectrum. So I give them an 8 or 9 out of 10. The only reason I don't give them a full 10 is because they don't offer a bunch of different organic varieties, which definitely has to count for something in some cases. They are a sponsor of this channel and they are super awesome. So in that case, I did go ahead and put a link down below because they're also one of the few soup brands that will actually ship from online. So you don't just have to get them in the store. So if you want to try the soup variations I'm talking about, like the butter curry and the broccoli cheddar and things like that, I went ahead, I put a link down below, and that way you can also claim a special discount for Thomas DeLauer fans. So you just use the code down below, check them out after you watch the rest of this video. Huge, huge savings, and also they're just an awesome company. The next one that I want to talk about is an interesting company called Tabachnik. Now Tabachnik only makes it maybe, I'd give them like a 6.5 out of 10. Reason is their oil selections aren't too great. Again, we're talking canola oil, we're talking sunflower oil, we're not talking the best quality oils. But the reason they actually make the list is because as a brand, they have quite a few different varieties, and some of their soups use a lot of oils, which I don't recommend in this case, but some of their soups are actually pretty clean. Like their split pea soup is very, very clean and very limited ingredients. So I do appreciate that. Hard part is it's not one that you're going to find at a lot of grocery stores, so it's a little bit tougher to get your hands on. They also do tend to add cane sugar to their soups, and they also do tend to use natural flavors. But again, you really have to look closely at the label. So because of that wide discrepancy and that wide array, they make the list, but not as much. Okay, now let's touch on what you absolutely need to avoid. Okay, we talked about flour, we talked about cornstarch, we talked about maltodextrin, we talked about those things. We talked about kind of worrying about natural flavors, but now let's go into some specific preservatives. Benzoates. Okay, if you see sodium benzoate, potassium benzoate, be very careful, and especially if you are being conscious of your immune system right now and loading up on vitamin C. Vitamin C reacts with benzoates to create benzene within the body, which has been shown in different studies in animal models to be very toxic. So we have to be very, very careful. There's even some issues in the past with some soda companies and benzoates and really causing issues with people where they had to actually pull them off the shelves. So if you see sodium benzoate, potassium benzoate, or anything benzoate, throw it away. Just get rid of it. If you see nitrates in your soup, yes, nitrates can come from celery. Naturally occurring nitrates are something different. But when you have a large amount of nitrites or nitrates, what can happen is the nitrates will convert in your stomach and then combine with the proteins to create specific things called nitrous amines. These nitrous amines cause a problem. So anyhow, just avoid those if you can in your soups. BHA and BHT, which thankfully you don't see a whole lot of anymore, but if you do see those on a label, those are derived from petroleum and they're designed to, again, increase the shelf life but also preserve the flavor, but really should be avoiding those. High fructose corn syrup, dead giveaway. That's going to be a bad quality product. You just want to avoid that. Fructose converts to fat very easily. Now with the food dyes, okay? Yellow number 5, blue number 1 and 2, red number 3, and some of the natural greens, okay? You want to be careful of things that say natural green coloring. Anyhow, a lot of these are also derived from petroleum and are also shown in a lot of different situations to be carcinogens or just very hard for your body to process. So now you have the breakdown of how to shop the soup section. Make sure you do check out Kettle and Fire and at least check out the other brands at your grocery store if you can get a chance to get there. As always, I'll see you soon.